used on, they developed that on the Empire. He did the tauntaun running through the snow as a famous shot at that time. And you have to realize this is all back in the computer digital days. I mean, computers, what were those things? I don't think they even had them in the offices then. I mean, it was that kind of thing. You know, I always like to kid people that when I graduated from college, the Macintosh was still 10 years away.
Right.
So, you know, it's like for me.
Where did you go to school?
I went to several places. I ended up at San Francisco State. Okay. I pretty much grew up down the peninsula here south of New York. And did that. But anyway, so all the computer stuff was still, you know, it was all somebody's dream. We had no concept of any of that. All our stuff was, you know, film and chemicals and optical printers and the cameras and all. And everything else. Of course, by the time I got going on Return of the Jedi, they bumped me up to full camera, so I shot a lot of stuff on that. And then continued as a cameraman there at Island until, I think the last film job I did there was Death Becomes Her.
Oh, wow.
And then they had a little commercial that they did for Intel. And that was right at the point when they were setting up to do the first Jurassic Park movie.
Right.
And you've probably heard some of these stories, but at that point they had a small CG department. This would be the early 90s. And so Dennis and a bunch of those guys said, you know, this is an opportunity, maybe we can do one shot to prove this technology, to put a dinosaur or something in the movie. So they did a test with a T-Rex running around on a field. They just shot some stills around the area. They took it down to Stephen at one point. I think it was on a Friday, if I remember correctly. And showed it to him, and he was so impressed. He said, oh, that's it. We're going to do the whole thing. CG. And of course, at that point, the plan was Phil Tippett and all of his gang. Phil now had broken off and started his own company. But these guys were going to build all the puppets and all that over his studio, and then they were going to bring them to Island, and we were going to shoot them pretty much the traditional way: go motion, stop motion, you know, blue screen, miniature stuff, the whole bit. And then that one day, it all flip-flopped completely. So ILM went into this kind of panic mode because they obviously wanted to do it, but they had really no idea how they were going to do it. No one had done anything like that. So there was a lot of scrambling around, and of course for us old guys at that point, who were just camera guys, photochemical guys, it was like, well, you guys don't really know anything about computers, so we're just going to have to lay you off.
Wow, that sucks.
So as soon as the various departments were winding down on all these projects, the Death Becomes Her project, there's some commercials I created, might have been a few other things, we basically were, you know, being laid off because they were frantically looking to bring in new, younger people that knew the computer. Fortunately, in my case, what was going on at that point, Tim Burton was doing his Nightmare Before Christmas animated film, and that was being done up here in the city, in San Francisco. So a lot of us got picked up for that. And in my case, it was literally a weekend. I was laid off at Island on Friday, and Monday morning I started up here.
Unbelievable.
And so I worked on that show as a cameraman, and that was about another year and a half. And a lot of Island people went over there, camera guys, modelers, set people, you name it. And so while we were doing that, the joke there for a lot of us is like, well, we're the dinosaurs now, doing the old stop motion stuff while they're over there at Island doing this stuff. And of course, that film turned out to be great. It was a lot of fun. And if you're fans of that, you know that.
I'm a fan, and my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, she just turned 6 when she was 4.
Yeah.
She'd sit in the car and recite, like, word for word, the entire script. I'd be like, what are you saying back there? She'd talk to the dialogue.
You guys, you live in Southern California.
Yeah, we all live in Southern
California. Okay, so you know Disneyland does the Nightmare Before Christmas thing, you know, every year, which is the Halloween stuff, which is great. Anyway, to make a long story short, when that show was coming to an end at that point, at least for myself, I had no particular feelings that I was going to necessarily go back to Island, because what did I know about computers?
Right.
So I started looking around for other freelance, and most of us were all union members. Island was a union operation for most of its life, because of the industry it is. So we were all, I was in the camera local, I still am, and all the guys were in another local here in San Francisco, so we could go look for work from them somewhere. So about 6 months after Nightmare ended, I got a call from a gentleman by the name of John Ellis. optical guy. And he apparently was, well, now several years have passed, so they've done Jurassic Park, which was very successful, and I don't know what else they were doing. They made something else, but their next big project was Casper. Live action
Oh,
Casper.
yeah.
And at that point in time, I mean, you look back on this and you go, what was the big deal? But at that point in time, there had been no movie that had a major character that was a full CG character. Or, I don't know if you call it Ghost, a full CG character, but at least, you know, a rendered and computer graphic character. So once again, I only kind of hit the panic button because they had gotten this far with Jurassic and other things, and now they had this much bigger project. And they didn't have the people and all the resources to do it. So I guess John and a few of the old guys that were still around there and hung on said, well, look, why don't we call back some of the old folks that we know that used to work with us? These people have a track record, they know filmmaking, they know composition, they know all the things that you need to know about making movies. Let's see if they'd be willing to come back and learn this stuff. So it was right towards the end of the year. I don't know what year it was. It was in the late 90s, whenever Nightmares came out. And got a phone call from John. It was near Christmas vacation because he said, would you be interested in learning some computer graphics stuff and maybe coming back? I said, oh, sure, why not? And they were offering 2 weeks of paid training, so at that point, anything paid was good because I was unemployed.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, sure, I'll give that a shot. So he said, well, come over, I'll give you a book and some videotapes to look at over Christmas, and then after the first year, come in and we'll start these classes. So I remember he gave me, if you guys are familiar with all these operating systems, Unix.
Yeah.
And the book was probably that thick. Unix operating system. And then a bunch of VCR tapes. And I remember going home with that, and my wife's all excited. She said, well, you're going to learn computers? I go, I don't know, we'll see. And I think I got through the first 2 chapters of the Unix book, which is completely unreadable if you don't know anything about computers.
It's like, okay, might as well go learn some foreign language.
Almost. I think it'd be easier to learn a foreign language. Maybe I'll take you up on some water. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My voice a little.